Egy-kettő. kívánok! Szeretettel köszöntöm Önöket a Republikon Intézet idei sokadik konferenciáján. Én Horn Gábor vagyok, a Republikon Alapítvány egyik képviselője. A mai konferenciánk nem születhetett, na ez nem sikerült, tehát nem jött volna létre, jó lesz, az Európai Liberális Fórum támogatása nélkül, ez fontos elmondani, és köszönjük nekik, mint annyiszor máskor is már, hogy részt vesznek a Republikon életében, és támogatják a rendezvényeinket. Azért is tartottuk fontosnak, hogy erről a mai témánkról beszéljünk, hiszen a magyar társadalomban jelentős változások történtek október 13-a után a önkormányzati világban, és azt gondolom, hogy fontos, hogy erről a különböző szempontokból beszéljünk. Tehát ugyanezt a konferenciát már tavaly megterveztük, tehát ilyen értelemben nem, és nem tudtuk, hogy ez lesz az eredmény, tehát ezt szeretném jelezni, hogy engem személy szerint is meglepett az eredmény, de azt gondoltuk, és most is azt gondolom, hogy ha a helyi társadalom változásai megjelenhetnek, meggyőződésem szerint meg is fognak jelenni a Magyarország egészében. Itt tehát egyfajta kezdetnek gondolom én, gondolja az intézet, az, ami történt alig egy hónappal ezelőtt a magyar társadalom egy részében. A mai konferenciánkra megkértük bevezető előadást tartani Dorosz Dávidot, őt nem tudtuk meg, hogy megkérjük egy évvel ezelőtt, tehát ez nem volt így, aki a párbeszéd részéről, illetve személyes részéről, ezt is mondhatom, főpolgármester helyettesként tiszteli meg most a konferenciánkat. Utána 2 panelben folytatódik a vita, a beszélgetés, úgyhogy akkor ezt majd, hogy miképpen ezt elmondjuk a Dorosz Dávid után. Dávid, köszönjük, hogy elfogadtad a meghívásunk, parancsolj!
Köszönöm szépen a meghívást, és köszönöm szépen a Republikonnak a szervezést, illetve azt a munkát, amit ebben a közös gondolkodásban, amit azt gondolom, hogy nekünk progresszíveknek el kell végeznünk, és azt a közös munkát, amit el kell végeznünk az elmúlt években, és amit az előttünk álló években is el kell végeznünk annak érdekében, hogy megfelelő irányba állítsuk az országot, illetve ezen keresztül Európát is. Amikor felkértek erre az előadásra, akkor sokat gondolkodtam, hogy milyen szempontból is vagyok ebben érintett, hiszen egyrészt volt az a szerencsém és megtiszteltetés, hogy kampányfőnöke lehettem Karácsony Gergőnek, és így aztán tevékeny részese lehettem, és végigélhettem azt a meglepetést, illetve sikert, amit október 13-án elértünk. Másrészt olyan gondolkodóként, aki az elmúlt időszakban nagyon sokat foglalkozott azokkal a globális válságokkal és kihívásokkal, amelyek nap mint nap érintik Magyarországot és Budapestet is, és ezzel foglalkoztam, írtam, és sokat gondolkodtam arról, hogy milyen irányban kellene azoknak az erőknek és azoknak a szereplőknek, akik egy zöldebb, igazságosabb Magyarországot, Budapestet és jövőt szeretnének tevékenykedniük, illetve nyilván most harmadrészt, de talán legelső sorban pedig városvezetőként, ahol Karácsony Gergely vezetésével egy zöldebb és szabadabb Budapestért szeretnénk dolgozni, és ezt a munkát kezdtük el. Nagyon fontosnak tartom azt, hogy lássuk, hogy a nagy globális trendek és folyamatoknál is a városok nem csak gazdaságilag, kulturálisan, hanem politikailag is kiemelt szerepet kapnak. És így van ez Magyarországon is, és így van ez Európában is. És így aztán azoknak, akik a városokban politizálnak, és a városvezetésekben vesznek részt, kiemelt felelősségük van abban, hogy milyen politikát visznek, és milyen szempontból reagálnak, és hogyan kezelik azokat a kihívásokat, amik most a 21. században előttünk állnak. Növekvő egyenlőtlenségek, a városokon belül is egyre jobban kettészakadó társadalmak, a klímakatasztrófa, ami lényegében a városokban jelentkezik a legdurvábban, és nagyon sokszor a legközvetlenebbül, és itt Budapesten is, ahol lényegében megtöbbszöröződtek azok a hőségriadós napok száma, és a Magyarországon belül is Budapest van leginkább kitéve a klímakatasztrófának, ahol olyan természetpusztítások zajlanak, mint például a Normafánál, amit terveznek most a jó fideszes mintaképének tartott Pokorni Zoltán vezetésével a fideszes hatalom. Ezek mind olyan kézzelfogható, napi szintű ügyek, amiben közös erővel és egy progresszív, zöld politikával együttesen kell fellépnünk. És ez az a felelősség, és ez az az időablak, amiben az idő szorításában vagyunk, hogy nagyon kevés, lényegében egy kezünkön meg lehet számolni azoknak az éveknek a számát, amiben valódi és hathatos változásokat tehetünk a környezeti válságaink és részben a társadalmi válságaink szemben, amelyek aztán egymással összeérve alapvetően fenyegetik a budapesti, a magyar és részben az európai társadalmakat is. És ez az a közös felület és közös gondolkodás, amiben szerintem nagyon fontos az ilyen konferenciák és az ilyen műhelyeknek a munkája, hogy egymás legjobb tapasztalatait, egymás legjobb tudását összerakjuk, és ezzel próbáljunk meg közösen válaszokat találni. Mi magunk is egy ilyen szempontból új városvezetésben gondolkodunk, és a magunk részéről egy új irányba szeretnénk, egy zöldebb, szabadabb, igazságosabb Budapest irányába szeretnénk vinni a következő években Budapestet, és remélhetőleg részese lenni, és elindítója lenni egy olyan változásnak, ami később az egész országban is el tud indulni, hiszen az, amikor arról beszélünk, hogy Donald Trump, Orbán, Erdogán és más szélsőjobboldali politikusok előretörése, szerintem nincs ennél erősebb és fenyegetőbb bizonyítéka annak, hogy valójában milyen válságok söpörnek végig a társadalmainkon, és az ebből származó félelmek és aggodalmak nagyon sokszor ilyen szélsőséges politikusok előretörésében jelentkeznek, és azoknak, akiknek a szabadság, az igazságosság és az, hogy fenntartható jövőt építsünk a legfontosabb, számolnunk kell, és válaszolnunk kell ezeknek a kihívásoknak, és ezeknek a politikai fenyegetések által teremtett kérdésekre is, és nagyon remélem, hogy az ilyen műhelyek és az ilyen konferenciák ebben segítenek nekünk. Ehhez kívánok nagyon jó munkát, és ehhez kívánok nagyon jó beszélgetéseket, és még egyszer nagyon szépen köszönöm a meghívást.
Köszönjük szépen Dorosz Dávidnak a megnyitó beszédet. Úgy néz ki a programunk, hogy egy első panelben külföldi szakértőink, illetve hát hazai szakértőink, Brette Zoltánnal fogunk beszélgetni a lokalitás, a globalitás és azoknak a problémáknak az összefüggéséről, ami a bevezetőben is elhangzott. A kihívás és a párbeszédnek a mai feladatunk tulajdonképpen az, hogy hogyan lehet összhangba hozni ezeket a különböző politikai erők által képviselt értékeket. Azt gondolom, hogy az, amiről szó esett, hogy szabad és zöld Budapest, ezt a kettőt talán meg lehet találni az egyensúlyt, és talán ez a mai feladatunk. Majd a második panelben külföldi és magyar polgármesterekkel fogunk beszélgetni arról, hogy mind a kampányban, mind az önkormányzatok hétköznapjaiban hogyan lehet valahogy az állampolgári autonómiát, a bevonódást, a demokráciát helyi szinten támogatni. Úgyhogy szeretném megkérni vendégeinket az első panelből, hogy fáradjanak a színpadra. I'd like to ask our panelists to follow us and take seat. So this panel is going to be in English, but the second panel is going to be in Hungarian. So, dear guests, thank you very much for accepting our invitation. we've been very lucky that we had the opportunity to start a discussion about locality and the importance of belonging to a city in Europe. And I'd like to, if you don't mind, just to follow, just to continue with some personal experiences. So when it's discussed, when the locality is discussed, it is always said that this is maybe the most personal level of politics. Because the city, the settlement, the municipality where we live, that belongs to our everyday life. That's the geographical space we are living. So if you don't mind, can you tell us some personal experiences, maybe good or bad practices, about what does it mean to you, liberalism on the local level? What kind of experiences do you have when you actually in the everyday practice? What does it mean to you personally, liberalism on the local level?
Okay. Yeah, it works. Oh well, liberalism on the local level. I think we started a little talk today about a different part of our countries and how we treat in our countries different issues. And when you are from Poland, like I am, you have the history of the partition and the history of understanding of different issues because of the impact the different countries that parts of Poland belong to for years. It has an impact on our understanding of values of issues of liberalism for me. I'm from Krakow. Krakow is some people would tell you it's a conservative city. For me, it's rather traditional city. This traditional thinking means also that we appreciate freedom. We appreciate freedom on different, I would say, levels of our life. What you can see right now in Krakow, it's a city that doesn't, as a city, not as a region, let's say Poland, that has a really, I would say, strong mayor, because we have the same mayor since, oh my God, almost 20 years. And it's a mayor from the left-wing party. And you can see that the policy of the city is a rather liberal one. It's not a very oppressive for the citizens. It's 4 years. It wasn't also very, even in Krakow you can find a lot of churches, like probably the hundreds, I think. Maybe not hundreds, but about 200 at least. You could see the impact of the Catholic Church, also because John Paul II was the Bishop of Krakow for years. But still, you have universities there. You have intellectual freedom, intellectual independence, and I think that we appreciate freedom on more and more. Also, we started to promote the values. We just talked with Suzanne about something we call the government ethics. And the government ethics is something that, for me, started to be present on the local level. So we started to think about, first, about the citizens' budgets. About the citizens' budget that is really, if you look at the projects that appears on the public sphere in Krakow. Those are mainly projects that appreciate things like freedom, like climate, like public health, and the integration of citizens. This part is to build a smaller communities when we try to understand each other. Also seeing those communities as multicultural. Maybe mixing a bit, maybe also because Krakow is a city for tourists, we would tell you right now, that we have more tourists than the citizens. And the downtown became almost empty. Since people moved to other districts, some of them are forced because of the prices of the houses they had to move. they started to build something at the suburbans also. And the suburbans are, from my point of view, I see more and more liberal people there, and even people that works for the corporations started to appreciate the freedom as the value. The freedom, but also we started, when we talk about the government ethics, we see more and more importance of things like accountability, like fairness, also transparency, kind of loyalty, but loyalty to not to the political party, but to the voters. And for me, it's a part of our thinking right now, and this is the experience we have in Krakow. And even if you follow the some acts of the today's city council, we see more and more liberals there. But the problem is in the region that even if we have a liberal city council, including just established the working group for LGBT rights and for the multicultural rights to support diversity, then we have a lesser Poland level, so the higher level that is not for just for the city, but for the whole district. And the Marchant is nominated by Law and Justice, so by a ruling party, and he's able to block some of the acts of the city council. For us, it was a kind of tragedy. He just blocked pro in vitro act of the city of Krakow, to block the in vitro for the citizens of the city, because it doesn't, it's not a part of the values that should be promoted in the district. So we have the conflict of interest right now, and we started to discuss how to deal with it, but also how to deal with it on the legal level, because we still, even if in our parliament acts there is a conflict of interests and a conflict of different laws. So yeah, it will be for the beginning.
Thank you for Magdalena Brand, who is the deputy editor of in-chief of Liberty. Marco, you are you're the European Affairs Director of the Fondazione Luigi Einaudi. It is based, and you're also based in Florence, which is the home of Renaissance, the birthplace of European humanism. It's a global city. One of the finest institutions of higher education in Europe, the European University Institute, is also located in Florence. Millions of tourists are visiting this city. But I believe you are at the same time a local patriot. How can you bring these two together to feel yourself very closely connected to a very global city?
Okay. So thank you for inviting me to this wonderful conference meeting, and thank you for your question. You raised the question, how to be local and how to be global at the same time. In Italy, we invented a new word that is glocal. This is the crisis of these two words. More than this, I think that from a liberal point of view, I have to describe the general frame that we have now in Italy. The general frame is that we have legislative power in the state level and the legislative power at a regional level. And more than this, obviously, we have a European legislative power. From an administrative level, we have local authorities and regions, and sector by sector, we have so many authorities that share the powers, so that it's very difficult to have an output for a legal procedure. And this was because of our history. After the bad experience of fascism, in Italy, they thought that the better way to manage political issues was to share the power so that it could be impossible to renew a dictatorial regime again in Italy. This was good for that time, but nowadays we need efficiency, we need goals, and all those local authority and sector authority who share the political power are very efficient to put their vetoes on each procedure, but at the end of the day, it's very difficult to reach a goal. So that from a liberal point of view, I would say that in a situation such as in Italy, I don't know how many parallelisms there are from the Italian situation and the Hungarian one. However, it's very important to lower the importance of the public. And public, from my point of view, means utilities. When I wake up, when everyone wake up in the morning, the first thing we do is to push the light button. Then we wash our face. It is the second utilities. The first was energy. The second is water. Then, as I'm an Italian, I prepare my espresso coffee using the gas. It is the third utilities, and so on. At the end of the day, I managed a lot of utilities. Currently, in Italy, all these utilities are under the public wing. And this has a double effect, that the state and the local authorities at the same time are unfortunately very inefficient in managing all these utilities because it is not their core business. A public officer usually is not that keen with economy or running a business. From another point of view, it takes a lot of money. So, from the other point of view, taxes, the level of taxation is very high. And a lot of money go for the state from the private. Our solution to be local and global is that the state has to take care of its core business, that is to regulate the market and to control the efficiency of services. We would like that in local public utilities, all the providers will be awarded by a tender, a fair tender, where the public companies and the private companies can compete fairly. At the end of the day, this could be the better solution for matching efficiency and low cost. So to have the best value for local utilities.
Thank you very much. Susanna Darlings is the Secretary, Permanent Program Committee at the Mr. Hans van Melle Stichting, and you're based in
very good. You practice the pronunciation, I can see. I know it's very difficult.
Maybe because I speak German, so you can combine the English and the German, and then it's basically something which is close to Dutch. But the point is that you're from The Hague, and the foundation is also in the capital.
It's not the capital, but it's the place where the government resides.
Yes,
which is always very difficult. I understand.
Yes, sorry for that. You're right. But you also traveled a lot. So if I'd like to, can you tell us something about your personal experiences? What is it for you to? What does it mean to? You know, if someone is a world traveler, then you can feel home in foreign cities as well. So is it possible to feel like that, or what does it mean to be a global citizen?
I guess from my point of view, yes, it is easy to feel like a liberal citizen anywhere in the world. As long as you have, because I have the freedom to travel and I have the freedom to go anywhere where I want, like almost. And I have the resources, which makes me able to do things like that. So maybe not everyone has it, and then it becomes much less easier to be a global citizen, for example. So yes, but you need to have the resources and the freedom. And that brings me to, I think, what is the central point of liberalism, whether that is on the national level or local level or international level. Doesn't really matter, because in the end it is about giving the individual as much freedom as possible, and that is not only freedom of external forces or external danger, but it's also the freedom to develop yourself, and therefore you need equal opportunities to education, affordable healthcare, lots of other basic stuff in the country where you live and also in the city where you live, which makes that you are able to develop yourself in the way that you think is best, because everyone has another idea about that, and that's fine, because there's not, it shouldn't be there shouldn't be someone else deciding for you what is the good life. You for yourself decide what is the good life and how you fulfill your life. So I think that is the basic part of liberalism that we also strive for from our foundation. And I think on a local level in The Hague, for example, where I've been living now for like 6 years, The Hague is a city of about 550,000 people, which is our third city of the Netherlands. We don't have big cities. Like Amsterdam is also like 800,000 people. So for us, it's a big city. And the thing in The Hague is that it's a very multicultural city. So you have lots of nationalities living over there. And also what you see is that, and it has been like that for some decades, you see that they're not always, those nationalities do not mix up in the way that you want them to be. So some areas are very much multicultural and other areas are very monocultural. It has been like that. It's not always a problem, but sometimes you can see that some areas are a little bit, they are, less well-being than others. So then you have to make sure, especially as a city government, that you still have equal opportunities in all those areas. For example, for children to go to good schools. I think that is one of the big challenges in a multicultural city. Yes, we are in favor of having as much nationalities as possible. I mean, diversity is good, room for differences is good, but you have to make sure that everyone gets the right opportunities. And sometimes, people, you don't get to choose in what area or in what family or what part of the world you grow up. So sometimes you have to take into account that someone needs a little bit more because of its background. So I think that's very important. And also a point about the international outlook of The Hague. The Hague has always been a city of peace and justice. So we also have the Peace Palace, we have the High Court, the International Criminal Court, which makes the city very international. And it also is a reason why lots of international students visit The Hague, for example. So now we also have a department of the University of Leiden, which is a city very close to The Hague. A department of that university is now in The Hague itself, which makes The Hague way more attractive for students as well. So it makes the city more lively, also attracts more younger people, but then you need to start building houses for those people as well. So every time new challenges, but I think that we have lots of different people, and that is what makes it interesting to live in that city.
Thank you very much. Zoltán Berta is an assistant professor at the University of Pécs, which is very close to the southern border of Hungary, and it has an important multicultural background. It was called in German Fünfkirchen. So it's and there's also international students there, just like in The Hague. Can you still feel this this multicultural background in Pécs, or what is you can rather feel the centralization which is ongoing in Hungary?
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation. Yes, Pécs is nowadays not so multicultural, but of course, have you noted, there is a large pool of international students studying there at the university. You have to know that the university has a budget which is comparable to that of the local government. And of course, investors, for example, have built a lot of apartments for lodging the students. So if Pécs works as a city, let's say its economy works, that is due to the fact that there are international students. So foreign students who would consume and would pay for lodging. So this is why Pécs is working yet. Otherwise wouldn't, because as you have mentioned, this kind of centralization process that goes on in the whole country is present in Pécs as well. But yeah, so it's a tricky thing saying that multicultural, because it's not like in The Hague that you have residents there, because these are students who would leave during the summertime. So during the summertime, of course, there are tourists, not as many as in Florence, and not as many as in Krakow, in fact. But anyway, it's in this way, I wouldn't call it a proper multicultural environment nowadays. It was before, because there were a lot of Germans living in that area, and other nationalities as well. So I do not want only to respond to your question. I'd like to take the opportunity to read you a quote from Alexis de Tocqueville. And this is the motto of my presence here today. Okay, just only one sentence, and then I give you back the microphone. So, a nation may establish a free government, but without municipal institutions, it cannot have the spirit of liberty. So, this is my motto. Independence and authority, as Alexis de Tocqueville has said, is present in townships. So if these are independent, and you are fighting for this independence, as I've heard, or you have the authority to manage things. In Hungary, we do not have this, or is shrinking all the time. It was shrinking during its 30 years history. It's now shrinking more than before. So if these are taken away, these possibilities, the town spirit cannot take roots in that area, and that is I think that is the utmost danger for liberalism in present days.
Thank you, Ryan Zoltán, for this input. As a matter of fact, Tocqueville is very often referred in Hungary from the aspect of civil society. So it is always said that civil society is very important for the sake of a liberal democracy. But it's not only about civil associations, which promotes democracy, but also municipalities. Thank you, Zoltán, for that. And I'd like to let us continue with that. Can be populism, right-wing populism, challenged from the local level? I think it's an important question in Poland as well. We are going to have a publication in some weeks where Milos Hodun wrote about how some liberal issues could be promoted on a local level as well, like LGBT rights or women rights. So these issues can be promoted on a local level as well. There are very important good practices. So I'm just very curious because we have a very new situation in Hungary, and one idea of the opposition is to challenge right-wing populism from the local level. What do you think about that?
Well, I just mentioned that. Okay, maybe from other side. Yeah, you have to. In fact, you have to. But you need to first. When I think about Poland, I think that the main problem is the understanding of freedom first. We had that after the communist era. We had the problem with freedom. We had a problem with freedom, and this is the first step also to understand how to challenge the populism. First, you have to understand what the freedom is. And after 1989, the Poles just get freedom, and they had no idea what to do with that. We fight for freedom, but then there was a Polish philosopher, one of my early teachers, Professor Józef Tischner, and Tischner wrote his books about Homo Sovieticus, about the ethics of solidarity. In English, it was the spirit of solidarity, I think. And he saw the danger of freedom, and he called it not the best gift we get. Why? Because the first things Poles tried to do with the freedom was to, like, immediately to give the freedom back to someone's hands. And the problem of the last 20 years, and exactly we discussed it with women in Krakow last Saturday, that for 20 years people wasn't ready to understand the freedom and to follow some liberal paths. And you mentioned women's rights, LGBT rights. When you have the act like a Krakow City Council, let me just make that big step to Krakow back. The citizens of the city are really okay with the act, because and with that new council for LGBT, for multicultural rights, for diversity. And they really, when they meet, we made some research in Krakow, how open they are for this kind of activities, and they're really open. In fact, we're a bit surprised having the traditional city mentality, I would say. But then, how to challenge on the local level? First, understand freedom. Then, maybe. Again, we talk about women's rights, as I mentioned, and we realized that for 20 years, so between 1989 and 2009, it was like almost nothing, just some moves on every level. And then we started the Women Congress in Poland in 2009. This year we had a 10th edition, and you can see the change on every level. Here, that the women started to work together. I'm not really about sure if I appreciate the idea of the sisterhood, and but we started to understand feminism not as a threat, but exactly as a challenge from one side, but also as a way to promote our rights, and as a way to promote our freedom, and not in the way that. As you say, it's to give someone the freedom, but to protect the freedom first. To protect the freedom, or to make women, then to make people from different levels aware that freedom is something they should appreciate, they should fight for still. And I'm not sure what is our colleague's article about. In fact, haven't read it yet, but. To see, we have to teach at a very, very basic level at schools right now that personal freedom, that personal rights is something that you cannot miss, that you cannot lose. And we're about to start this kind of program with Liberté and some other foundations right now in schools, and also the Free Courts Foundation Association started the program like a few years ago about the Polish Constitution in schools to teach children that they have basic rights and basic freedoms. And this is something you have to do if you want to think about challenging the right wing. First, to understand freedom, first to understand your personal rights, your human rights, and then to make more steps. Because if you don't have the awareness of freedom, you have no chance to challenge anyone.
Thank you very much. Marco, your organization, and you're also from northern Italy, and you also talked about the Liberal City, but still northern Italy is the home of Lega Nord, which is also a right-wing populist political party, and they are on the rise. So I think it's you have the same challenge there. Somehow stop this populism or challenge populism from the Liberal City. If you can share your thoughts about it.
First of all, I have to update you because the current main Italian political party, you call it Lega Nord, which could be translated the North Party, more or less, changed its name 2 years ago in just Lega. When they started, and for decades, they were against Rome. That means centralization. That means the death of local municipalities, because of the north of Italy is progressive, efficient. The south of Italy is the place where the mafia is governing, with inefficiency, and everything is bad is happening. But 2 years ago, they went to government, and so they decided to have a more comprehensive political program, so that they took off the north, just they called Lega, and populist every time by time need something to fight against. So the beginning they fought against the south of Italy. Now we have the main issue in the popular perspective, that is immigration from Africa. And so now they fight against the south of Europe, that is immigration from Africa. And so the glue, the core business of their political program is to raise barriers against the immigrants, because if you raise a barrier, you will be more safe, it will be safer, and all problems will be sorted out. More than this, in their populist program, all the problems come from Brussels. Europe is the mother of all problems. So every time there is a problem, the root of the problem, the cause of the problem is not inside you, but is outside you. So that you, yeah. And that's why I think in Italy we haven't the problem of freedom at a legislative level, or the problem of women protection at a legislative problem. You have a cultural problem. So it means that when you enforce this legislation, you have the difficulty in the action. And that's why, for instance, in Italy, women have an average wages that is 30% lower than men's average wage. Even we have a legislation with gender quotes and so on, but it is a cultural point of view. And in the first question, you mentioned that Florence is the place where Renaissance birthed, and one of the most important icon of my city is the David from Michelangelo. The David is the icon of freedom and liberty, because it is a very little man, but he can fight and win against something very strong and much bigger than him, just with a stone in his hand. And it was a message to shut down with the medieval fears and to go ahead with their own strength. And that's why I think that a lot of people has freedom, but they have the fear of freedom, such as Eric Fromm said in his books. And the Italian history is a history of municipality. In Italy, people feel more related to the city than to the state. So that municipalism is very strong. And the Liga program, when there are elections in Florence, is people from Florence first. When is in the city that is very close to Florence, for instance, Siena, people first. Everything is first. Obviously, this is impossible, but people like it.
Thank you very much, Marco. Susanna, in the Hague, as you mentioned, there's the International Court of Justice, but also as Magdalena mentioned, education is very important in order to to challenge populism and to promote the idea of freedom and liberty for the also for young people. How can you put this together? So, is it what you think from the bottom-up approaches are more important, or central approaches? My question also refers to the fact that we could see during the refugee crisis that especially in Germany, local communities welcomed refugees, and somehow local communities responded with a more democratic response and a warm-hearted response. So, do you see if there's some kind of opportunity that local communities can prove that there are good practices of liberty and freedom?
Well, definitely. I think that a lot of local communities responded in the same way as that you mentioned about Germany. But it's always, there is always a chance for, whether that is on a national level or local level, for populist parties or parties that have a little bit of populism inside of them, and sometimes it comes out, especially at these moments, to say, well, we don't know about this because you know, once you let some people in, then at some point we are overwhelmed with refugees, which was obviously never true. And in the end, it also it turned out that it was like just 1% of the amount of people, of the amount of refugees that some populist parties predicted in the Netherlands, which is always very interesting, because it always ends up very well. There is always enough place. Most people are very happy to help on a local level. So I'm always a little bit frustrated because it seems like sometimes it seems like the easy way to just react in a way that is responding or just, you know, rewarding some opinions of people about refugees, like it's always a bad case or something like that. So it seems like the easy option, and I don't like choosing the easy option while the other option is actually the best option. Maybe the somewhat more difficult option, because you have to do something and you have to arrange some things and you have to make sure that, you know, people will still be living together in tolerance. Yeah, sometimes that's not easy, but I think you still have to fight for it, as we mentioned before. And if it comes to education, for example, we've had a pretty big discussion about the question, what is citizenship actually? And as soon as you start the discussion about that, people are all over the place, because there is not one answer to that question. You know, sometimes people think that citizenship is only connected to some kind of traditions, and then you get the question, what are the Dutch traditions? And then you have a lot of troubles. So, but what I think, what is very important in the case of citizenship, and especially when it comes to education, is that you have some kind of basic knowledge about what it is to be a citizen, what kind of rights you have, and what it means to be able to vote, for example, on any kind of level. Because nowadays, and I realized that, I didn't realize that myself until I went to a school on which, okay, I'm not going to explain about the whole school situation in the Netherlands, but a school on which students from 16 to 20 go, for example, to, it's like a vocational education. And there was one of the students sitting at our table, and we were discussing the topic of citizenship, because recently, I think 2 years ago, they launched the idea that it would be good to have like a different subject at that school to teach about citizenship, that is nationally, so not just at that school, but anywhere. And there was a student from the student council. She was 18, I guess. She said, well, before I had some kind of a class about citizenship over here, and she had her first class about it when she was 18, I didn't know what it meant to be able to vote, which I found very interesting, because I thought that any kind of student from the age of maybe 12, 13 had some kind of idea about what it meant to be able to vote, to have the right to vote. But she didn't have something like that. And if she didn't have it, then it means that a lot of students don't have that idea. And maybe that's the reason why they don't vote. Why we have a very low vote participation in the age of 18 till 27, which is, of course, a shame and also very bad for democracy, because this is exactly the generation that we need to keep, we need to contain them for, for their whole life. Because if they are not going to vote anymore, and the generation after them won't either, then what is democracy? So I think it was a very important discussion that we had about citizenship, and it's very important that students from any age, I think it should be a primary education, at secondary education, at any kind of education, it needs to be there. I don't care whether it should be a subject for itself, or it should be incorporated in history or in other kind of social studies, but it should be anywhere. It should be somewhere, because anyone should know what their country is built upon. You know, rule of law, democracy, what it means to be a citizen. So I think it was a good discussion, and well, I'm actually curious for the other panelists how this is arranged in your country.
Okay.
So I have to wait a question, or I have the freedom to talk about what I want?
No. I have
the
a
freedom
question.
to ignore me, and then
We can also, yes, I think it would be important to discuss the role of education, but also I'd like to ask you, Zoltán, about.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
But I just want a brief question. In Hungary, everyone speaks about the success of the opposition at the municipal election. Also in Pécs, the oppositional candidate could succeed. But what do you think, from the aspect of individual autonomy and freedom, is it going to be this result a game changer, or is there still some level of political patronage will still remain in the municipalities in Hungary, so that people should act according to the wish of a mayor in order to get a job, or this level of corruption and patronage is still going to exist, or is it really a time when individual autonomy and the autonomy of communities and individual freedom could be fulfilled?
Just please remind me your question again when I turn to it, because at first I'd like to challenge a little bit this enlightenment outlook of yours, which I share deeply, but I'm not convinced of its efficiency. So both of you have talked about this. Education might be a solution, citizen education and so on. My problem is, and let me turn again to de Tocqueville, who says the primary education for liberty is the township. It's the hands-on approach to politics. There you learn the first letters of politics, how to act, how to be involved in local and public affairs, how you can give up your individuality to some extent for the public good. Acting freely in local governments means the primary education. This is what we lack in the case of Hungary, of course. It seems to me that all over the world, this autonomy of local affairs, this hands-on approach in which you are able to be involved efficiently. I mean that if you say something, that tomorrow will be done. So it's not like the parliament that you have to discuss hours and days and I don't know months. No, it's you want that street paved? Okay, do it. So and the other day it's done. So it's a very close personal experience to be involved in local affairs. Now I turn to your question. Do these local governments indeed have this kind of autonomy nowadays? I wouldn't say so. So it's very hard to teach citizens to be free and to act when they lack autonomy to act. This is not my paradox, but my challenge to the so-called educational approach. Your question, let me just, it reminded me two examples, and let me tell you these two examples because it seemed to me very characteristic in this populist thing. So yes, indeed, at these latest local elections, the governing, let's say, populist, but I don't like to use it alone, I like to attach the authoritarian populism. So the authoritarian populism of the ruling party was heavily defeated. Though the mayor, who was affiliated with that party, the mayor did everything to serve the interest of the authoritarian populists in economic matters as well, in corruptional matters as well. They sometimes overlap economic and corruption. Occupied the water and sewage company in the name of the people, and then it created a local company for doing that. Banned civil society groups from the city, just warning every resident of the city, saying, okay, don't give them an office because these are Soros guys, so don't give them offices. So he did everything to serve the interest of the governing authoritarian populist tendencies and party. Okay, and he was defeated. And the real populist, and this is my other example, is the real populist in Pécs was a socialist, a previous socialist mayor, László Toller, and I recall a meeting in which the mayor and some of us were meeting the then Hungarian Prime Minister in a closed meeting, in which the mayor, Toller, has said to the Prime Minister, very bluntly, he said to him, "Give me 20 billions and I leave you alone." Because, and this was absolutely known in the city, that he is doing everything for his city. So he was so, let's say, enthusiastically attached to his city that it came true, and really voters have appreciated all the time this kind of attitude. So it might be called populism. I would call it local patriotism. If you are able, so you do not, you are not successful if you serve the interest of a populist government. No, you are successful if you are a local patriot. That's exactly how I think it should be. On the other hand, we all three. I'm sorry, I left you out of this. This very sad. It's your good. We share a common thing. You have mentioned in your first intervention that you had the fascist experience, and the political elite, I don't know what, after the Second World War, has decided to distribute power. We had a similar experience after the socialist, communist, I don't know how to call it, era. We had a similar experience, and we have arrived to the same conclusion. We have to distribute power if you want local liberties to be, not only local liberties, liberty in general terms, to be rooted in the country. This is what is taken back now by this illiberal, centralizing government.
Thank you very much, Zoltán. Maybe you want to comment on Zoltán's thoughts?
Well, I was just thinking about this educational issue, and I'm sorry, I'm an academic. I'm an academic, you know. Yeah, of course, Tocqueville was right about it. But my problem is that you need to understand that you have that freedom, that you have the right to do anything. That's why. I agree. Okay, thank you. But also what you say about the citizenship, about the understanding of the citizenship, what is I think going on in our countries when we follow the populists. The populists is that we, at least populists, are trying to convince us that to be a citizen means exactly to be a patriot, but then the patriot, at least in Poland, it changes into be a nationalist, and it's really, really close. And believe me or not, a lot of my students doesn't understand the difference. When I started to teach at the political department last year, and I asked the students about the difference between those two things, they told me, "Oh no, it's exactly the same." And those are people that are 19, 20 years old. So I think, I simply forgot to tell you about it, that maybe a kind of a way to challenge the populists right now is what we are about to start with Liberty right now. It's a kind of idea to reverse the narration, because all the narration of opposite party, but also opposite any kind of opposition in Poland right now, it's a narration about the conflict. And maybe we shouldn't talk about the conflict, but to show that all the opposition from liberals to the left, we have a lot of things in common. And if we would my idea is, in fact, and we will start a campaign about it. It's to try to to show to the to Polish citizens a kind of patchwork. You know what is a patchwork? That we can understand some of the ideas differently, that we have but we have some links, that we have a lot of connections, and when we will build a kind of positive narration and about the openness of the citizenship, so the we won't give because we just let's say gave the populists the right, a kind of right to get all the symbols, all the patriotic issues, to have them on their side. But if you are liberal or if you are left wing, whatever, it doesn't mean you are not a patriot. So we are about to draw the map and to show how we understand some ideas, some issues, and to show that we also understand them in a positive way. And this is exactly the core of the citizenship. So this is my like, so to challenge the populist story.
But it could be achieved also on a European level, like when it comes to European citizenship.
Yeah, I think so. But first, in our countries where we have a strong conservative or right wing or populist on the government, we should start from our countries, because we are so deeply divided right now. In Poland, you get like a straight line, and the broken our community, our society is in fact broken. Because of and you can, when you cannot sit, for example, the Christmas is coming up, when you cannot think about sitting with your family at the same table, because there will be a discussion about politics. Years ago, it was just a religion you cannot discuss about. Right now, some people won't meet because of the politics, because of that break is so deep that it's really, really hard to talk sometimes.
No, but I completely agree that the basis should be that the discussion is possible and that it's okay to disagree about some points, you know? That you can sometimes learn from each other, and sometimes you can say, okay, I don't agree with you, and that is fine too. And that
but we have something in common.
Yes, because it reminded me of that I was talking to a teacher at secondary school, and that the first thing that he introduced was like students having a debate, just, you know, a discussion, and that the first time they were just shouting at each other, and they were all very angry afterwards because, yeah, but he said something I don't like. Yeah, well, welcome to life. So, you know, the fact that that is possible, and that is just something which should be normal in society, I think that is very interesting to promote a little bit more from your point of view. So I completely agree on that.
First of all, let me be polite with Suzanne on the educational issue. I agree with you. In my first slot, I told you that in Italy we need a strong reduction of the public expenses so that it's possible to lower the tax pressure. This is the main rule from my point of view, but there are some exceptions. The exceptions are education, innovation, and research. On these three subjects, we need more money, more public money, because they are strategic points. And for instance, what is the best educational goal you can reach? I think it's important that you know the classical topics. If you're born in Italy, it's important the history, the art history, philosophy, and so on. But what is more important at the end of the day is to understand that our history is the Michelangelo's David history. So it's the history of freedom, is the history of the awareness of what happens around you, is your capability to understand reality and not just to follow the mainstream. And this brings us to the issue of the fake news. This brings us to many other issues. Many other issues.
I'm just laughing because, okay, your history is also the history of Machiavelli, so.
But it's efficient.
Yeah, but let me say that for being out of prejudice, Machiavelli, which was from my city, was a very positive people. Instead, outside is considered the one who said that the goal make possible everything. So in politics, you can do everything. It's something that Niccolò Machiavelli never said, but is the general narration around that. Anyway, municipalism is important. I think the solution of our problem is Europe. My father and my mother are still alive, and they told me what happened during World War II. So I think this panel today is a goal of our era. But we just understand, are aware of what we miss and not of what we have. I think Europe is very important, and this panel is a good result, let me say.
Thank you. Speaking of Europe, I think there are some common European issues, urban issues. I think it's worth to discuss from the aspect of liberalism. David was also mentioned in the introduction the climate change. I think maybe for in all European cities, in East Central Europe, in Northern Europe, in Western Europe, the housing inequality which is connected to housing, the rising prices of housing, I think it's one common issue. And also there are also the similar ecological issues, transport, climate change. But actually when it comes to solving these problems, it's always about restricting some liberties, like the freedom of property, the freedom of entrepreneurship, or the freedom of consuming. So how can you put together freedom, green responsibility taking, and the fair housing?
Well, it reminds me of a report that was published like a couple of weeks ago in the Netherlands. It was a state committee, and it was supposed to deliver some kind of a solution for the problems that you are naming right now. Because we see in the Netherlands that you cannot have it all right now, and actually that was also almost the title of the report. You cannot have it all, really. But it's true, of course, because in some way you can set limits on some kind of on industries or agriculture or entrepreneurship or whatever. But so you always want to build houses, and you always want to have the most freedom to trade, and you always want to. You also want to have a lot of good nature, and so at some point you get stuck in some kind of it's a dilemma. So you have to deliver a solution, and that is the dilemma that our government is facing right now as well. They had a climate agreement. They agreed on a lot of measures when it came to the energy transition last year, and we were very happy about it. But now, it's only one step, because now you have to carry out all those measures, and then there come the problems. Because in the last month or last 2 months, I think we've had several demonstrations every week of almost 80 farmers associations, construction builders, teachers, people working in healthcare or whatever. So like any kind of associations who think that they have either not enough money or not enough freedom to do their job. And it's true, because you cannot have it all anymore. we have some rules about pollution, about CO2 emission, about lots of other emissions. And at a certain point, you get stuck within all those rules, and you cannot have it all anymore. So you have to tell people from the government side, you cannot do what you're doing anymore. And then, yeah, of course, that's not nice to hear. What I find very important is that, like a lot of parties, political parties, mainly the ones who are not in government, but also some who are in government. We have 4 parties in government, so it's always a good remark to make. A lot of parties tend to promote all the rights of any kinds of groups that are going to demonstrate. Oh yeah, you are demonstrating. Yeah, we're right behind you. Yeah, we got your back, which is impossible because, you know, the next week they're voting for motions in the parliament who are exactly against the thing that they said to the groups the week before. So I think as a government, you need to be just, and you need to, sometimes you need to make difficult choices because we want our country to be there, and to be there in a good way for future generations. So, and if you have put a goal, like we did, to be like energy neutral in 2050, then yeah, you need to invest a lot in innovation as well. But sometimes you need to do things less, and that is very difficult. And it's also very difficult for people to accept that, because you don't want, you know, we thought that welfare and economical growth was like, it didn't have an end. It was something good, and it's still something good. I want to say that as well. But you have to do it maybe in a different way, in a way that ecological issues are addressed as well. So that is difficult, but so on the one hand, as a government, I think you should set clear rules, and if the rules change, then you should have attention that you take care of the people who cannot do the things for themselves anymore. So people who immediately or instantly don't have the salary anymore that they used to have, or they cannot pay for their house anymore because, you know, they cannot do the job anymore that they did. So, so set clear rules. Also, rules for the industry as well. So don't think that some kind of industries, they just do it on their own or because they want. So you need rules, but on the other hand, you have to take care that some people cannot manage on their own, that you have to support them a little bit.
Thank you. Maybe Marco, you made some notes about the issue of putting together freedom and solving the housing crisis and the climate.
Yes, I think that just apparently there is a trade-off between climate change, innovation, and the progress. I think innovation is the key word to manage the future. If we are truly liberal, we believe in innovation, we believe in competition. The goal of competition will be to lower carbon emissions and so on. So I think in this sector, the liberal recipe will be interesting as well.
Thank you. Adela, what do you think about these challenges?
For me, I would say I just agree with Marco, with Susanna. For me, the Krakow issue was, you know, the Krakow is, you may call it the capital of smog, the capital of pollution in Poland. So we started to, it's just an example how we started to fight it. Really, some time ago, the city council decided that, yeah, we will limit some of the freedoms of our citizens. So, for example, right now, since September 2019, it is forbidden to use the carbon in the city to warm your house, and to use fireplaces, for example, even if you have a house in the city or Yeah, in the city area. I remember protests at the very beginning, but then people started to understand, and we had a whole campaign showing, yeah, this is exactly when you use the fireplace, when you have a really high CO emission, when you produce smoke, in fact, you limit other freedoms of your co-citizens, and you have an impact on the health. So we limit one freedom to show that other freedoms are more important. And yeah, so this is the basic formula of liberalism, in fact, that the border of my freedom is the freedom of another human being. So we're all laughing that we use the classic formula of liberalism to introduce anti-smoke city council act. So yeah.
So during the Hungarian municipal campaign, a lot of candidates, oppositional candidates mostly, talked about green issues and to having more trees and to have a green public transport. But do you think that there are, of course, other interests? There are the interests of the people who are using their cars. Do you think that these mayors can solve these issues? I mean, they could bring somehow together and have a consensus on how is the city should like, or is it only about restricting the freedom of people if they're restricted in using their cars, or how would they act? I'm asking because I think that the community of car drivers, of people who are using cars, it's very strong, and there's always against just restricting the usage of cars in bigger Hungarian cities.
Yeah, I think that your question and Magdalena's answer previously, or intervention, is a perfect answer to your own question. Yes, these are conflicting issues. The freedom or the liberty to breathe fresh air conflicts with the liberty of using, the freedom of using your own car. Of course, in environmental issues, there is no royal way of cutting through these conflicts, as you've mentioned also. So it's okay, a conflict. What you can do is to assume the conflict, to make it open, and to put it on table as you did. Okay, this cannot be not discussed. So if you put it on a table, and you can convince people, even the car drivers community, that okay, this is a risky affair, of course, but this is why we are liberals and we are not populists, because they of course they avoid to put these conflicts on the table and to discuss them. If we believe in discussions, even in those crucial matters as environment is, then okay. What you can show in all these discussions is something that I think it was taken up even by the introductory, by David Doros. It says transportation, smoke in your case, or environment, or green, Budapest, and I don't. But these all things boil down to a very simple question, very simple thing. This is life quality. And you can just put it in this way. Okay, do you want your life quality improved? Then you have to assume some conflicts. Then you have to assume some decisions, which is not easy, of course. But this is the only way. Discuss them and assume the conflict, assume decisions, and we'll see what comes out. But other possibilities, there are no other possibilities, in fact. There are absolutely none. Not I think, at least for a liberal approach, there is no other alternative.
May I add something? Because I was just reminding me that last week we took a very, some kind of a harsh measure, but it was necessary, that the maximum speed on highways went down from 130 to 100 in order to be able to build houses again. Because the limit for pollution that was caused by building houses, by construction building, and also, by the way, by the ammoniac produced by cows, was up to such an extent that something needed to happen. So there were no possibilities to build houses anymore. Like everything needed to stop, and then there needed to be another solution. So the solution became that the speed limit became lower, which they made fun of in Germany because they thought, what? Even lower than 130. But it's going to happen. Life quality, that's what you said.
Yeah, there are actually a lot of conflicting interests, and I think liberalism acknowledging pluralism is a good way to put these conflict interests on the table and to discuss these issues. I think this event is a similar one where we can discuss all these urban issues. And thank you very much for joining us and accepting the invitation. I think there's a lot of takeaway from today's first panel, but we also have a second panel, so please join us for the second panel as well. Köszönöm szépen a figyelmet az első panelhez. Egy rövid szünet után folytatjuk délben a politikusi panellel, és majd a politikusi panel végén a konferencia zárásaként egy kis harapniról, egy kis szendvicsebédet szeretnénk kedveskedni önöknek, úgyhogy maradjanak velünk, délben folytatjuk. Köszönöm szépen! Az ebéd egy jó